So can we go to John Coburn and Jennifer Reed, and they're going to talk about Fellfoot Sounds, which is connected with the Fellfoot project that possibly you might have heard of before. It's been going on for a while. So Tom's going to bring up some slides to flick through while we talk. There's quite a lot of them, but John says you can power through them. So John, just give us a little bit of background about Fellfoot in general.
Right. So Fellfoot Forward, and sorry to those of you who have heard this from me before, but 4-year NLHF funded project led by the North Pennines AONB in the Fellfoot, part of the North Pennines, and it's a whole host of things, but projects which are about conserving, enhancing, and celebrating the natural and cultural heritage of this part of the Pennines. It's as much about kind of conserving rivers as the bits we'll be talking about today, which is very much about how does an arts program support a kind of a wider public engagement with the key themes around conservation and landscape. Thanks for having us. It's nice to be on with Jennifer as well. Can we skip to the next slide, please?
Has that changed?
Yep.
Great. I really briefly wanted to talk about the event that we're running, and I know Chris said it's a festival. It really isn't a festival, but it's a small event, and I'm saying it in that way because we're trying to set expectations. There aren't lots and lots of stages of things going on. It's a very kind of quiet, sedate, but really inspiring day and night, we hope. And I'll talk to you about it in a second. But the context, so this is an event which forms part of the arts programme this year, which is Arts Council England funded, as well as NLHF funded. And off the back of a year and a half of activity, we've learned lots of things, working with communities in the landscape, including with some artists who are on this call. And so this year, it's about working with a kind of an interesting and brilliant team of regional and kind of cross-regional artists, musicians, to go into the Fellfoot and to document and perform and respond to this landscape, both its kind of environmental sort of features, how it's changed over time, but also its social sort of change. So it's very ancient in some senses, and it's also there's a lot of migration that's happened over time. So it's about creatively exploring that. We're doing it with schools, with healthcare partners, and a lot of other organisations, including charities like For Eden, and we're targeting people who live there, but it's also for visitors, and it's we have some specific targets around working with young people with learning disability and or autism. We are working with socially isolated groups, intergenerational groups, but yeah, we're working with everyone really. Next slide, please. And can I just check? Things are going a bit off with my Zoom. Can you see now a picture of a chap on towpath?
Yeah. Yeah.
So some of the workshops I just wanted to give you a sense of. So we've had a team of artists over the last 4 months working with schools, residents, including adults who are learning disabled and or have autism, so through For Eden, and they've been going out into the landscape and learning how to use different sound technologies, recording, producing music, recording interviews, recording verbal responses, and really for a lot of these groups it's about something creative, but it's also for this image it's a group who had said they in part lacked the confidence to be in the natural space. For some of their autistic residents, having the permissions to access green spaces is a big challenge where it's not clearly kind of marked. So this project was about supporting them to have the confidence and the creativity to go outside and kind of look at these places afresh. Next slide, please. And this is Colgate School, one of the groups who worked with 2 brilliant artists, they went into kind of signal boxes in Colgate, and they explored their landscapes, and this is them performing haikus and field recordings, and it's like a fairly off-the-wall experimental piece, but they were amazing, and they loved it, and it gave them confidence to go outside and think about these landscapes differently. Next slide, please. It's already been briefly alluded to. Some of you, it was fantastic to kind of be on this call a few months ago to kind of flag this. As well as working with artists, we are keen to think about, based on the insights we collected from the last year or so, what development opportunities would be useful for artists and practitioners. So we ran a 24 sort of 30-hour workshop at High Moorland and at Talking Tarn, with artists who came together with Chris Watson and Tim Shaw. Next slide, please. And this is some of them there. Sorry, next slide, please. And through an introductions of technologies and of listening practices, they were supported to think about how kind of sound and listening and the use of the technology that affords them to do that can support and kind of connect into their practice. So there was visual artists and makers and musicians there. There was also some company owners and farmers. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is a quote from Rob, who was on the call. We did some feedback, and it was really well received. Something that's been really special following this is a good number of these artists have stayed connected through WhatsApp and through kind of coming together to plan and plot projects. And this is a quote from Rob, which said, "It felt like you were part of a community." So this was actually a fairly diverse set of skills and practices that culminated around the act of sound and listening and the making of those sounds. And this group have gone on to sort of think about how they work together to blend music, field recording, walking, listening techniques. Next slide, and next slide after that, please. So we've got some, yeah. So I just wanted to flag something which is further in the year, which you might be interested in. It hasn't been advertised yet, but it'll be advertised, we hope, in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So off the back of that event that I've just mentioned, some artists we're really keen to do more. So we've been working with Blue Jam and Evan and some individual artists who came to plan 2 events. So this first event on the 7th of October, we're supporting artists to come together and over a 7 to 9 hour day to share practice and create and essentially piece together something which can be performed at this next event, which is the 28th of October, which will be a public event. And it's all about the reuse of what was collected from the Chris Watson recording workshops with the birdsong and the weather. But it's also a kind of a showcase of this kind of burst of creativity that's kind of coming through October. So we'll share information about that. Fellfoot Forward newsletter is the best place to sign up to it, but also Gilly at Blue Jam and Tom at Evan would share more. Next slide, please. I'm blasting through this, sorry, I'm hoping it's making sense. One of the outputs, so there's a lot of audio essentially being produced. We're going to publish audio on a continuous online stream. We hope by the end of September. We'll share more information when it's live, but this is a collection of publicly generated material, but also live streams which we've plotted in the landscape, in cattle sheds, in ancient churchyards, and there's one more, RSPB Geltsdale. So there'll be music, there'll be oral histories and interviews, there'll be field recordings, there'll be work generated by young people and artists. Next slide, please. So this is the context, and this is kind of building up to why I'm here, I guess. Fellfoot Sounds. This is a public event, and it links to all of the things that I've spoken about. It happens the 19th and 20th of August. It's deliberately kind of small scale, so there's only really going to be like 120 public who will be coming. It's almost sold out. So I was hoping to shift some sales on this call. We have day tickets left. We don't have any camping or camper van slots, I'm afraid, left, but there's still space if you'd like to come along for the day. So this is advertised as a kind of very relaxed daytime, one night camp out. There will be some live performance, but it won't be a kind of typical stage-based performance. They'll be making and workshops. And if you want to find out more, go on the North Pennines website. There's a bit.ly link there, and we can obviously share it with you after this call. Next slide, please. I'm going to briefly share some of what's happening. So the artist Jane Dent, who will be performing later in the evening, is going to be doing some workshops. I should say this is very family friendly, but it's not exclusively for young people. It's for everyone. So she'll be showing you how to use technology to kind of sample with field recordings. Next slide, please. We'll have some artists and public performing at sunrise and sunset at Long Meg, which is, I should say, this is Into the Woods near Glastonbury, and and this is just off the site, so we can walk along Meg, and there'll be an opportunity to take part in some beautiful performances, acoustic performances, I should say. Next slide, please. We'll have ecologists and archaeologists and historians and artists leading walks, so bat walks, archaeology walks, and also really pleased to announce as well that Alex, who's on this call, is going to be doing a birdsong art walk, responding to birdsong through creativity and art. We'll have next slide. Sorry, are we up to a church slide? No, I think I've gone to
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. We'll have some performances at Addingham Church, which is again just on the edge of the site. It's a 5-minute walk away. A church with no parish, and this was interesting for us because it relates to the natural environment. The River Eden washed away the parish for this church 400 years ago, and it's been sitting ever since. It's still used as a church, and we'll have some very small scale performances in this church. Next slide, please. Including performers like Orr, who are based in the west of Cumbria. Next slide, please. Blue Jam will be doing lithophone making, showing you how to kind of make instruments out of the rocks beneath your feet. Next slide, please. There'll be live mixed sound walks, so you can wear wireless headphones and listen to a kind of a live mix of the landscape around you. These are all small scale events, I should say. This isn't big. Next slide, please. And this is where I kind of depart. We've got a radical folk workshop with an amazing artist named Jennifer Reed, who I'm going to hand over to now.
Lovely, thanks, John. So tell us about Radical Folk, Jennifer. You're currently in your van near Preston. You are Lancashire originally, aren't you?
Yeah, well, pre-1974 county boundary change, so technically Greater Manchester, but I was born in Rochdale, so there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this workshop, so usually I wanted to do like a weaving workshop and then like sing songs and stuff, but I have been told it's strictly sonic. So I am going to do this thing where I prescribe everyone in the circle or around me a song from either what they're interested in regionally, or if it's protesty, or if it's anything to do with their family background or interest or something like that. If they like dialect, I'll do dialect. And then because I usually carry around all my songs with me, so I've got like 400 ready to go at any one time, and I pretty much know the context of most of them because I found them myself, got them from the archive, they're hardly found. And then I'm going to go around the circle, ask people their interest. I'm going to prescribe each person a song, and we're going to sing through the songs, and then we're going to dialectify them. So if they're got this gorgeous Cumbrian accent, or if they've got this amazing Birmingham accent, we're going to bring that out, and then people can feel connected to these songs that they didn't even know about half an hour ago.
Fantastic. Next slide, I think, Tom. This is you on the telly.
God, yeah, this is me in the Gallows Pole. So I not only sang in the Gallows Pole, I musically directed it. I musically directed the wake scene. So I came up with all the music. I researched it to buggery because I knew that I'm not just some 2-bit actor. I am ballad girl, and they're going to get me if I don't do it right. So I researched and researched and researched all the tunes, a total period. I gave generational tunes to people. So Fine Time, who was singing, I don't know if you've seen it, I give him a song about a saucy Quaker, which is very, disgusting really, but that's from the 1670s, 1660s, so he would have obviously known older songs than I, because I was singing from the 1720s, 1730s. Researched it all from a book called Pills to Purge Melancholy by Thomas Durfee, and then came up with the tunes from my friend who's a fiddler. He helped me with the tunes, but yeah, I'm very much in the first episode. I'm in it all, but the first episode is really where I sound the best, and I'm singing in a corset, for God's sake.
I haven't caught it yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. Next slide, please. Right, who's your friend?
Yeah, I just made him the other day. So Set will have a flower pot workshop, and then they do a big festival, and I've been doing plant pot sculpture workshops in Colne, Colne, in Lancashire, and we finally, I installed them all on last Monday, and it was great because I used loads of Gorilla Glue and loads of cable ties. So I tried to kid proof, because in Settle they don't like weigh them down with anything. People are just nice and look at them and then walk away. But for me, I've had to like peg them all to the floor and make sure no kids are going to get them. But yeah, and then I also run weaving workshops. I do weaving stuff, banner painting, plant pot sculptures, songwriting. One of my latest songwriting projects from about 5 years ago is a group of ladies who wanted to sing about the natural heritage of the area that they were from, and it went from a coal mining place to like natural history. So they called themselves the Coal Tits, mainly group of women that name themselves after a bird, wink wink, and they now perform at like timber festival and stuff, so I'm really proud of them. But just to kind of go on.
No, I was going to say, Jennifer, have you got a website where people can find out all of these things that you're doing and join in?
Yes, jenniferballads.com. And then I'm on Instagram as Jennifer Ballads with 2 S's. I did have the original Jennifer Ballads account, and then I got locked out of it, so I had to add another S. If you're
maybe you can pop those in chat later. Next slide, please. There we go. That's the end. So just to come back to the experience at the end of August. I mean, John, you said it's not a festival, but I mean, I think it is a festival experiences rather than a kind of festival performances. From the sound of it, it's very much immersive, participatory, and I think Jennifer's tying the sounds of the ballads very much relates to digging into the sounds of nature as well. It all very much is of a piece, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So it's mainly, there's no one event which will be dominating. There's no headliner. It's things will be happening at different points, and it will be sort of 15 to 20 people with each one. It is very much an experience, and it's also about giving space to people within the landscape. So they might want to dip out and kind of walk, go on a suggested walk themselves and kind of listen to the landscape afresh off the back of an event. So it's quite a different take on it, but it's sound and listening, and it's about connecting with all those things, history, environment, and change and constancy.
Fabulous. I think people will be rushing for those last remaining tickets. You said they're day tickets, so is that for just what? Is it just one of those 2 days, or are they kind of 2 separate days you can go for?
Yeah, there's only really a day. I mean, it'll start on Saturday just after lunch. It will run up to early evening. We'll be finishing. I mean, sound will stop at about 11 o'clock. It's operating in like a kind of a campsite in that sort of way, and then activity will run the next morning from 5 a.m. At the Stone Circle, but it's done by just before midday.
Okay, thanks very much. Briefly, has anybody got any questions for John or Jennifer? Anybody raising hands? I can't see everybody. No. Thank you so much. I mean, the whole Fellfoot enterprise is an amazing project, and everything you've been doing. Obviously, we've heard plaudits from Rob Fraser, and we very much look forward to future developments. Thank you very much both for coming on and talking about it. Do stay if you can. I think John has to rush off fairly soon, and yeah, if you can put details in the chat for how people can follow up on any or all of this stuff, that would be amazing. Thank you very much indeed.
I'll do that now. Thanks for having us.
Yes, same. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Right. Richard's it's applauding, not raising a hand. Okay, we're now going to the Moonlighters Collective, which is Hannah and Amy, who are about to come off mute. I'm sure. There we go. Hello. So Hannah and Amy, I think I'm right in saying both from Cockermouth originally, or went to Cockermouth School and Kirkgate Youth Theatre, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, it's actually where we met. We discovered this the other day. So we met about 15 years ago. Yeah.
And they presented a work in progress at Kirkgate Youth Theatre yesterday evening, which people were blown away by. But tell us more. Well, first of all, tell us more about Moonlighters Collective, about what it is and what you do.
Yeah, of course. So we don't have any slides. So I'm going to do my best to sort of paint a picture of our work with words. So we're the Moonlighters Collective. It's co-run by Hannah and myself. My name's Amy Allenby. My pronouns are she, her. This is Hannah, pronouns also she, her. And we are both sort of theatre makers, and we work professionally as freelancers within the industry in other roles as well. And we set up the Moonlighters Collective several years ago now, but we've been working professionally for the last couple. And we are a queer-led feminist political theatre company with a focus on creating original or innovative theatre that sort of pushes the boundaries of what theatre can be. And we're really interested in theatre as a medium to encourage discussion around taboo subjects or difficult subjects. So previously our work has included an original play written by Hannah, which was called I'm Not Your Woman, and that was presented at Edinburgh Fringe, and that was exploring society's response to sexual assault. We've done a sort of a work in progress play, Dear Beryl, which was Arts Council funded last couple of years ago now, and that was exploring poverty and technology and sort of the rising what social media was sort of doing to young people. And we're currently working on Ophelia, which is an original one-woman play set in Cumbria. And we have just received Arts Council funding to do a period of research and development over this summer in Cumbria. And Ophelia is written and performed by Hannah, and I'm creatively producing it. And we've got a whole team on board now.
Yeah, we've got a Cumbrian team. We're being supported by Theatre by the Lake as well, which is fantastic. We're being supported by Box of Tricks, who are Manchester based, but have a real interest in writing in the north. And yeah, we're in this really kind of exciting stage with it because obviously we're back in Cumbria, which is fantastic. I'm originally from Cockermouth, Amy's from Graysoon. And kind of as professionals, we've found we have to leave the region a lot to find work. So actually getting funding to be able to come back and actually make something here feels really important and really special. Our team's very Cumbrian. We've got Louis Whitemore, who's our designer, who often works at Theatre by the Lake. Patch Middleton, who I don't know if possibly has been on this call at some point. He's a Cumbrian composer. He's fantastic. And Maya Shimin, who is a Cumbrian director. So it's really nice to kind of get all these like Cumbrians back in Cumbria actually making something that's about the region. And we were at Kergate Youth Theatre last night, which was amazing. They are fantastic, and so is Tish, who's on this call, who runs it. And it's been so great to kind of work with teenagers in the region and see, I guess, like how the show resonates, because me and Amy are in our mid-20s, and the show explores mental health, growing up in Cumbria as a young person. It interweaves with Shakespeare. It looks at the character of Ophelia, looks at being a young woman with mental health in the region. But obviously being in our mid-20s, we want to make sure that it still resonates, you know, what's changed, what's the same for teenagers now. So we've been working for the first part of the R&D with schools, with groups of young people, with youth theatres. We're going to...
you've got a workshop tomorrow, is that right?
So we did have a workshop tomorrow. We are actually going to be rescheduling it. So we're going to do that one in September, because we'll be back in the region working with the young farmers in September. So we are going to be moving that one, but we will send you some details. But yeah, so we're working with lots of groups of young people, which is fantastic, and developing the show through that. And then we'll be in a room at Theatre by the Lake in just over a week,
end of July.
And then we're doing a sort of design-based R&D on the show from there, and it will culminate in a showing and a design exhibition, which will be in Manchester, which is a really interesting thing actually, because we were in conversation with Amy Clues at Theatre by the Lake, and we were sort of thinking, do we do this exhibition in Cumbria? And she was like, no, take it to Manchester, because more industry will come. And the point of that exhibition is to kind of get industry on board to hopefully support us to then put in a tour bid to the Arts Council.
But I guess that is all, I mean, it's putting Cumbria on the map in a sense, taking it to a major centre, but very much stressing that you are, you know, sort of a Cumbria rooted company.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much. And with Ophelia being a Cumbrian story, it feels really, really important. We've done sort of work in progress showings in Liverpool and in London so far. as well, and it does feel very, very right that Ophelia's home is in Cumbria. So when we are looking to tour it next year, we want to tour it across Cumbria and get as many sort of young Cumbrians and Cumbrian communities seeing it as possible. And yeah, stressing the importance of the region within the rest of the country as well, because it very often, through the workshops with young people, it very often feels growing up here like we're a little bit forgotten, we're a little bit left off the map, and we're really keen to ensure that young people can see that a career in the arts is possible within Cumbria, that there is a way to put Cumbrian within the theatre industry in the wider context of the UK.
Yeah, definitely.
So absolutely behind the whole CACN agenda, really. So that's brilliant to hear. Right. Who has any questions for Hannah and Amy? We have a couple of minutes we can spend further with them. We have congratulations from Lavinia. Very much looking forward to it. Do we know, you say the aim is to tour it next year. When do you imagine it'll actually open?
We're hoping, well, it depends. I mean, depends on that funding bid, but we are imagining probably end of August onwards, ideally.
Yeah, so it's mid
target
next year.
Yeah, and starting off in Cumbria, doing as much as we possibly can in Cumbria, and then widening out to the north as well. So Manchester, Newcastle, Liverpool. Yeah.
Right. Kate has a question, I think.
More of a comment, actually, but just to say how lovely it is to see both of you. And I remember you both well from my days at the Kirkgate, and it's just such a lovely thing that you have gone on and thrived in this way. It really is fantastic. And just also to say that if there's anything CACN can do to support you when it comes to your Arts Council bid or touring or anything like that, this is absolutely, as Chris says, right up our alley. So stay in touch with us and stay, appear on these calls as often as you possibly can, because that's a good way to meet people and for them to hear about what you're doing. But congratulations, it's just marvellous.
Thank you so much, Kate. Yeah, it's really great to be invited to these calls, and also just to sort of see the collective that's formed around Cumbrian artists, and we will definitely stay in touch. And yeah, in terms of support, just we'll share any events, and just sort of the support you're giving us right now is great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Also, sorry about the clock. My dad obsessed with clocks, so we have so many clocks around us, and they will just chime.
I didn't know, so it all fits in with the sonic theme of today.
Yeah,
Tish has a question, but also just Verity saying, how can we support, e.g. things to follow, where to keep an eye out so we can come and see the shows? Your website, obviously, we'll pop that in chat. And Phil Hewitson said that I'm Not Your Woman was such a powerful piece, and he's looking forward to seeing how things progress. Tish, you have a question?
Yes, again, like Kate, it's not really a question, it was just a comment. So the Moonlighters Collective came for 2 weeks to work with Kirkgate Youth Theatre, and they did a workshop, didn't you? And then you did a performance last night. At the end of the workshop, which was last week, they went round at the end and asked for one word from all of the young people that they worked with. And it was just so moving, because the words were things like inspired, excited, buzzing, happy. It was such a lovely moment to watch the reactions of our young Cumbrians actually being inspired by these two young people. And then the performance that they did yesterday was absolutely amazing. And what was lovely again, I think, for our young people was that you two came in and said, that they weren't going to watch as a performance as an audience, but they're actually going to be involved. So it was fantastic for them to feel involved in the process of your R&D as well. So so thank you again. It was amazing, very intense evening, but it was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you, Tish. Yeah, we're really keen, I think, to sort of bridge that gap. Growing up, when we were growing up in Cumbria, it can feel quite daunting having a career in the arts, particularly in Cumbria, and it can feel very like we're sort of removed. And we're really wanting to bridge that gap between sort of the amateur youth theatre to the sort of the larger, big scale things we see. We really want to ensure that young Cumbrians can see that there is that they can have an impact and can be involved in sort of emerging professional theatre.
Yeah, make that transition a bit smoother, hopefully, and give them the confidence to kind of see that we're that step ahead, because obviously we have trained, we are working professional, but it's it's a very feasible step.
Yeah.
It's a step they could do too if they wanted.
And I think Theatre by the Lake is making a real contribution to sort of supporting that development across the county, isn't it?
Absolutely. And yeah, Theatre by the Lake have been fantastic in sort of supporting us throughout our development as a company as well, and really allowing to support us bridging into professional work, and their support with Ophelia as a project has been really, really important and really significant. But yeah, we'll put our website and we'll put our social media in the chat, and if you want to support us on there, as a small company, a like or a share or a follow goes a long way. So
okay, that's lovely. Thank you so much indeed. Do stay on if you can for the rest of the call. We've got more interesting stuff coming up, but if we have no more questions, we shall move on to Rob and Harriet Fraser, who is not present with us today except in spirit. Yes, they work as Somewhere Nowhere, which I'm sure a lot of us will be aware of, and they have recently been given the accolade of the Cherry Keaton Award by the Royal Geographical Society. This wasn't something I'd heard of before, but it's an immense honour. Previous recipients include the amazing artist Andy Goldsworthy, the amazing photographer Sebastião Salgado, the amazing sort of digital film art filmmaker Tasta Dean, and somebody called Sir David Attenborough. So you're in very elevated company. Rob, we're going to play a little film of Harriet receiving the award, which tells a lot of the context. But just briefly, to anybody who doesn't know, what is Somewhere Nowhere?
Somewhere Nowhere is our collaborative art practice that Harry and I set up back in 2011 that looks at essentially the culture and nature of place. We've been curious about this place. We're not Cumbrian, although we like to think we're honorary Cumbrians now, having lived here for 20 plus years, both of us. So we do environmental work primarily through writing and photography. Harriet's a writer, I'm a photographer, but we also do quite a lot of installation work, and we like to bring people together to break down barriers wherever possible in terms of making landscape decisions. So we're really, I suppose, environmentalists at heart who want to use our art in an artful way to get people to talk and to move forward for a more sustainable environment. So that's essentially what we do. So we like to play in the outdoors, Chris, really. We love being outdoors. That's our office.
Great, excellent. Now, my lovely assistant, Tom, is now going to share his screen and play a wee clip of Harriet, who sadly is still a bit poorly from going to the wrong sort of festival. But this will tell you a bit about what they've been up to and why they deserve this award.
Also got a bit of the man introducing them and lauding them with praise as well. So if this doesn't work, Chris, shout out, but let's see what happens.
We can see the man anyway.
Okay.
We're not getting sound yet, Tom. You probably need to share sound somewhere. We had a, oh, there we go.
Apologies for being an amateur, we'll try again.
Medals. The Cherry Keaton Medal and Award is presented to Harriet Fraser and Rob Fraser, working singularly and together as Somewhere Nowhere for their contribution to the public's wider understanding of the natural world and their interaction with it. Somewhere Nowhere celebrates the value of walking journeys, slow time outdoors, and has grown from a collaborative practice of photography and writing. Somewhere Nowhere uses exploration, discovery, and creativity to build connections between people and nature. Rob and Harriet show real passion and curiosity for the world around us and have the talents and skills to capture that and share it with many. They are very worthy recipients of the Cherry Keaton Medal and Award. I welcome Harriet and Rob to the stage, where they'll say a few words and we will see images of their work.
Harriet picked the only straw to give the talk.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. It's such an honour to be here. And as Rob said, he picked me to read the speech, but we did work on this together. We are honoured and humbled to receive the Cherry Kearton Medal and Award, and there are so many people that we would like to thank who have been part of our journey to this point. Thank you. We formed our practice Somewhere Nowhere in 2011 and began studying hill farming in Cumbria. We started with a superficial, perhaps a romantic view, but we soon discovered how complex hill farming and landscape management are in the uplands, a mix of value systems, demands, aspirations, and concerns. Since then, and in numerous locations, we've continued our exploration of rural landscapes through a variety of lenses. A friend once shared a phrase attributed to Queen Victoria: "Beware of artists. They mix with all classes of society and are therefore most dangerous." We like to think we're not dangerous, but we are curious. Learning from a huge range of people is a massive privilege. In the past 12 years, we've had close to 1,000 interactions spanning farming, academia, land management, environmental sciences, and other disciplines. There are always crossovers between specialisms, and expertise comes in many forms. What everyone has in common, though, is the land and a love for it. This love is a host of feelings, data of the heart, as we call it, that connect us all to place, to one another, and to other than human species, and help us better understand landscapes and our place in them. Personally, Rob and I collect our own data of the heart and contemplate all we are learning through extended periods outside, walking, or being still and quiet, in all seasons, all weathers, night and day. We believe feeling and knowing are entwined. Through our work, we hope to inspire others, and we aim to bring different perspectives into an ongoing conversation. How might people work better together in more equitable relationships with the land? Too often, land is done to, exploited. We'd love to see this change. 2 years ago, we founded the Place Collective at the Centre for National Parks and Protected Areas at Cumbria University to build a community of artists who work in transdisciplinary environmental research. We were asked what success might look like. For me, the only way to answer was with a poem. Here we stand, wind-bitten, taking in the view of the past that has led us to here, looking over threadbare land, a hanging on of fragments linked by remnant strands, and the beginnings of repair. What might our view be from the highest hill in 5, 10, 100 years' time? Could it be this tattered land, healed through acts that begin with the simple practice of listening? Creative practice within geography carries listening forward to learning and ultimately to change. The Cherry Kearton Award is a recognition of this, and we are honoured to be among a long line of recipients. Art, in whatever form, may not provide solutions, but it can stir emotions, foster connections, and motivate action. Art is vital in making a stand for more wholesome relationships between us all and with our shared beautiful world, where love, wonder, and concern continue to drive us on.
I love the concept of data of the heart. That's definitely a phrase I'm going to take with me.
Thank you very much, Tom, and huge congratulations, Rob and Harriet, for that achievement. I'm just, I'll come back to you in a second, Robert, just flagging up that in the chat, Joe Riley has pointed us at a new network, Cumbria People and Nature Network, focused on the delivery of the Cumbria Local Nature Recovery Strategy, and there's a place you can sign up for that there. So relating to geographical and concerns of place. Fantastic. Rob, now, just to pick up on some of your other practice, tell us a bit about commons.
Crikey, commons. I suppose we've been involved in working on common land for 12 years now. You can't sort of talk about the hill farming practice of Cumbria without discussing commons, because commons play such a big role in the landscape here. For anybody who doesn't know, commoning, the system of commoning, is whereby farmers who live in valleys have rights to graze their animals on the fell tops in Cumbria. So somebody or everybody owns every square inch of the UK is owned by somebody, like a lot of the world, I'm guessing. So the National Trust might own some of these commons. Lowther Estate own a lot of the commons. Other people own the commons. But there are rights that are given upon the hill farmers to actually graze animals at certain levels and at certain times of the year. So it's about the practice of going up to the fells with your sheep, if you like, primarily, and then bringing them off at certain times of the year. So it's been going on for 800 years or more, that act of commoning. So it's quite a long-held tradition. The kind of, I suppose, the controversy now that sprung up over the last long while is how many sheep should be allowed to graze the fells. So there's a line drawn between the conservationists and the sheep graziers. And depending on what valley you're looking at, you could say that some areas might be overgrazed and some might be grazed about right. And some people would argue that some areas are not grazed enough, depending on what outcomes you want. So we've been looking at that kind of area, not just in Cumbria, but Dartmoor, Shropshire, Yorkshire, for the last X amount of years now. It's a really interesting subject. And as you might think, like everything in life, it's very political. It's a very political thing to be looking at the moment.
Now you've got a couple of exhibitions, a couple of places people can see your work in the currently or in the coming weeks. One at Fairfield Mill and one over near Ullswater. Just tell us a bit about.
Yeah, the Fairfield Mill is just a wee exhibition of our some of the commoning work that we've been doing. It's just a pop-up exhibition in the community gallery there. It's on until the end of September. So if you're popping into Fairfield Mill, which is an excellent place for loads of good stuff they've got in the shops there.
It's over in Sedbergh, isn't it?
It's just on the edge of Sedbergh. It's about a mile outside Sedbergh. And then we're bringing together at the moment. So Harriet's downstairs furiously pulling together some material for an exhibition we've got coming up in Glenreading Village Hall next week. It's just a 3-day event, the 19th, 20th and 21st. It's called Watershed. It's part of Harriet's PhD. So she's got a PhD project going on for 3 years, primarily focused on the Ullswater Valley. And then we brought 5 members of the Place Collective together to actually meet with 28 people in total to find out about their relationship to place, their relationship to the landscape, what it means to them, their value systems. So the 5 artists between us have interviewed all those people. So we're going to bring our own art forms to bear on what we've heard, both from those people and from the landscape itself. You know, as with everything we're doing now, we'd like to think that the land should have a voice in all these decisions that are being made, rather than just being done to all the time. I think it's high time that the system needs to change. I think we're both thinking the same thing. Even going down the route of something that's cropped up on our radar recently, if you haven't heard of the idea of earth law, do look it up. It's a thing that's gaining real strong significance at the moment, inferring rights upon systems in the landscape, even individual trees, blah, blah, blah. There's no reason on earth why we can't give rights to things that happen in the landscape. If we can give rights to a corporation, an abstract form like a corporation or a company, why can't we give rights to a being that's survived in the landscape for 300, 400, 500 years? So that's what we're trying to do more through our work, I think, is to try and get people to take on board that.
Splendid. I will throw open to the floor in a second, but I just want to bring into the conversation Amy Bateman, who has joined us and who has also received an award recently. She has won the Lakeland Book of the Year award for her splendid publication, 40 Farms, and many of us might have seen the exhibition associated with that at Reged. Amy, do you want to just come off mute and receive your plaudits? How are you feeling in classic TV naff interview mode, he says?
Just overwhelmed, really. I came on this morning because I was very interested to hear what Rob and Harriet are up to, because I was absolutely delighted to hear about their award, and I'd been reading up on it. So it was great to hear that and listen to Harriet's speech there. And this doesn't come close, you know, what they've achieved. I don't want to take away from their achievement. Lakeland Book of the Year is fabulous. Very pleased. So,
and just, I mean, the exhibition is continuing, is it? It's still touring or will be touring?
Yes. At the moment, there's 5 of the panels are currently on display down at the Food Museum in Suffolk, in Stowmarket, as part of the Meet the Future campaign exhibition, which is about how red meat needs to, the dietary consumption of red meat and how it's produced needs to change. And so my panels are there to reflect the social and cultural aspect of red meat production and the need to encourage the sort of regenerative systems that actually create them in a nature-friendly farming capacity. So that's quite nice to be involved in that. And then from the Food Museum's point of view, in May 2024, it's going to open there at 40 Farms in its entirety, and it's going to be there for 9 months, which is quite remarkable. And then we're got some contacts that we're trying to work on to get it into London, because lots of people in Cumbria, you know, they understand these systems better now. We need to, it's the urbanites we've really got to try and tackle about these sort of farming methods that we need to start supporting. And to the fact that winning Lakeland Book of the Year is fantastic, because it'll just keep that momentum, maintain that that movement of education. And Harriet had a brilliant fresh to encourage that motivation to change. And that's what we really need to do, to change how we think about our landscapes, to change about how where we buy our food from and how the sort of producers that we get it from. And I think my book is a tiny step in the direction to helping people understand that.
Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, the 40 Farms is a wonderful panoramic view of farming in Cumbria, I think you could say, embracing very, very traditional practices and very, very progressive approaches to ways of eking a living out of the land, and commons comes into it as well. Let's throw open, has anybody got any questions for Rob and or Amy? Tom shoots his hand up.
Yeah, because I can't work out how to put my hand up electronically. I want to say congratulations to Amy. It's a beautiful book, and I want to say congratulations to Rob and Harriet in particular, because I think I think part of what we do on this network is we should champion and celebrate success in Cumbria. Lovely to hear from the Moonlighters Collective about talking about the Cumbrian draw that has brought them back to this part of the world as well. But for Rob and Harriet, I think you're just amazing at reaching out and including people in your work as well. I think you're always, you know, the Place Collective is a really good example of that, but I can think of many other examples of where you seem to embrace and celebrate working with people, which actually is sometimes really difficult to do. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of tolerance sometimes, and seeing things from other people's perspectives. So I think you're just a shining light in how collaboration can take place and how we're better often when we work together. So congratulations to you all.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, collaboration is crucial. If we're going to get through everything that we've got in front of us, then, you know, widen the skill sets, widen the net to bring in other people who've got the skills that are necessary to get everything over the line. You know, I'm a photographer primarily. It's what I've been doing for 40 plus years. So I can point a black box at things and collect light, but there's lots of other things that I can't do. But my brain works in a way that I'd love to do more, but I can't. So by bringing others in to help that happen, that's the only way of getting stuff done, I think. Many great artists will use, I'm not calling myself a great artist, by the way, but use other people in the fabrication of their work. And, you know, that's the way it's always been. So, you know, continue. And this network is a great example of how people come together.
Rob, what have you got coming up? Have you got things that are brewing at the moment but haven't quite emerged?
The simple answer is yes. There's loads of stuff going on at the moment, actually, Chris. Harriet's full-time PhD. It's full-time, so that's keeping her busy.
And what is the subject of that?
It's looking at agency and landscape decision making. So she's primarily interested in how decisions are made and what voices are heard. Not just within Cumbria, but Cumbria is her focus. So she's using art as a tool for engagement into understanding how decisions are made and bringing in the quieter voices. And as you wouldn't be surprised to hear, including other than human voices, you know, how do you bring those into the room as well to make decisions that are equitable for everybody? We absolutely are not down on farmers. You know, we've got a lot of hill farmer friends over the last decade or so that we tap into, and we strongly admire what they do. And if anybody gets the opportunity to go on a fell gather with a farmer, I would strongly suggest do it. It is an absolutely wonderful way of understanding the landscape through the feet of a hill farmer, male and female, and it just brings that whole landscape to a different light than primarily what you would used to doing, from getting out of your car, walking to the top of the hill and going back down again. You know, it's just a cultural gem, and that shouldn't be lost. Here's the medal. I thought I'd show the medal, by the way. It is a real thing. It's made from bronze. Cherry Curtin, he's got an interesting, the guy who was named after. I've just got this 2 sentences here. They were brothers, Richard and Cherry Curtin. They were born in Thwaite in Yorkshire and educated at Mooker in Swaledale, the turn of the 1900s. Cherry Curtin specialised in animal photography, having taken the first ever photograph of a bird's nest with eggs in 1892. Cherry Curtin contributed photographs to 17 of Richard Curtin's books. He made the first phonograph recording of birds, a nightingale and a song thrush singing in the wild in 1900, took the first film of London from the air in 1908, and the first footage of hostilities in the First World War at Antwerp in 1914. So that's the kind of the footsteps of
a war photographer and a wildlife photographer.
Yeah, thank you.
Talking of photography, Amy, you've got your hand up.
I was really interested, Rob. I loved Harriet's speech. Is there a link online where it's available to view again? I'd just like to listen again.
I'll stick the link in.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so RGS website, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'd love to listen to that again. And we've been saying for ages, Rob, we really need to meet up and have a cup of coffee.
It seems we're a mile apart. Yeah, why not?
I know. I drive past your house about twice a day, and I just like we've never.
Oh, come on, we keep moaning about the geographical difficulties of Cumbria, and you're a mile apart.
It's in the next village to us, and we've been saying since we met about a year ago, we've got to meet up. So
we will, Amy.
Yeah, okay. Love to.
Right, I'm just briefly going to move on to Al Critchlow to give a little report on the first arts and visual arts and craft sectoral meeting that we had yesterday evening, where CACN is trying to offer opportunities to sort of smaller segments of the overall cultural ecology in Cumbria to come together and share concerns. So Al, that went pretty well, didn't it?
It did. Do you know, I thought it was really uplifting. I was so impressed, partly by how many people turned up and by the level of conversation. So I think listening to today's call sort of highlights it. You know, there are some great arty thinkers in this county, and how brilliant to come together. What really, really echoing what Rob's just said, you know, that idea that you're so much stronger together. And I think that's what came from last night's conversation, that collectively we can pin down the main challenges that we all face in different ways here and find really uplifting, inventive ways of finding new ways forward and sort of imagining a different way of doing the art scene here. So loads of ideas came from it. So myself and Eleanor Cheney facilitated the call. And what we did just to get the conversation started, really, we had 3 kind of main questions that we focused on in little breakout rooms just to get the conversation started. So first looking at opportunities that are currently there for artists in Cumbria, then looking at the how COVID had changed the arts and culture scene here, and then looking at ideally how we would like to see the way forward, you know, what we would like to see in the future in the county, and pinning down some of the main issues. So loads of stuff emerged, too much to really summarize in a couple of minutes, but some of the key things that I thought were really great ways forward that were suggested were things like perhaps a directory of art spaces. A lot of people were flagging that there are very few contemporary art venues in the county, you know, kind of public spaces for showing contemporary art. We got into the idea of an artist-led programme, perhaps, that could really address some of the big issues that were coming up, things like the need to diversify and build new audiences for the arts here, how to keep our young graduates in the county, how to kind of address the kind of boom and bust thing that occurs quite often, where you see great things happen, like maybe the Fred Festival was highlighted a couple of times, and the Sea Art initiative, and they kind of build and build and become really good, and then they sort of fall flat. And we were kind of musing around that a little bit. Ideas as to maybe having a rural artist charter, maybe even a billboarding campaign. All of it boiled down to finding ways of learning how to really value art and the artists that make it. That was the kind of big takeaway, I think. But yeah, also we've sent out a sort of follow-on form for further ideas and just to work out how the group would like to move forward, because I think everyone felt it was a really important conversation to start off. So
Great.
thanks for all of you for, you know, starting it, really.
Yeah, and definitely there will be another opportunity to meet in that way, and in a couple of weeks' time, on Wednesday the 26th, there is a similar meeting for the theatre sector, people working in theatre and kind of non-music performing arts, and that's being run in collaboration with Theatre by the Lake and their Cumbrian Creatives initiative. Oh, it's 10:30. We must stop. Huge thank you to everybody who's taken part, the departed John Coburn, Jennifer Reed, Rob and Harriet, congratulations again. Amy, congratulations to you too. Moonlighters, congratulations on the amazing achievements so far, and we look forward very much to future productions. And thank you all for taking part. It's all been about unity and diversity today, and Phil Hewitson has given a big shout out to the Unity Festival in Carlisle tomorrow, which is indoors, or however much we like being outdoors. There's an opportunity to be inside Tully and experience a whole bunch of stuff there. Next week, with a sigh of relief, we will revert to normal with Tom in the chair and Amy oiling the wheels. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend, and see you again soon, I hope.